Good morning and welcome to OSW Daily, where each day we talk about the trending work-related topics with industry experts and thought leaders. If this is your first time coming across the channel, thank you. Hope you find this video useful. And if you do, please consider subscribing. So who am I? My name is Steve Todd. I'm Global Head of Workplace at NASDAQ, and I'm also the founder of OpenSourceWorkplace.com. So what are we going to talk about today? Let's have a look at our agenda. Today we're going to talk about Onyx, new renovation in their office in Paramus. We're going to talk about Gen X, some interesting statistics on what percentage of the housing market is being bought by the Gen X population. And then the pandemic, real estate has gone digital. We're going to talk about what actually restricted the real estate industry going digital, and then what things the pandemic and opportunities has provided to us. And today I'm very happy to welcome Jonathan Schultz, who is a partner at Onyx Equities, to discuss these topics with us. So Jonathan, come on in. Welcome. Great to have you with us again.
Happy to be here, always.
It's always great to see you, mate. It's always great to see you. So, Onyx Equities, tell us a little bit about who you are, Jonathan Schultz, and who Onyx Equities is.
So now I'm 30 years into a real estate career. So I always say, it takes a long time to see what you still love, and I still love it. So that's a good thing. Also, do a lot of early stage investing in real estate technology and other technologies over the last 7 years. As we all see, we're morphing even more into I think the fourth revolution, which is this technology disruption, or actually just this technology helpful stage for lots of our businesses, right? We are a full service real estate operator. So we buy and operate all the properties that we acquire. We do that in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. We have chosen to stay local. We feel real estate is a local game. So getting to know the tenants, the neighborhoods, the people, the community. You live, work, and play in real estate. It's the fabric of really and attached to everything that we do. So we felt being local and understanding those markets allowed us to be involved in more asset classes, right? So we invest in office, we do industrial, we have retail assets. We're also doing some residential assets right now. If you spread out too wide in your geography, you probably could focus on one asset class and be good at it. But I think you could be great at it if you stay in the communities that you know, especially over a long period of time. So that's what we do.
That's a very interesting insight there that say, staying hyper local and therefore building out your portfolio in a certain market. So, you manage properties, as that's part of what your business is. What's it like managing and and being a property owner during the pandemic?
Interesting to say the least. Our occupancy has slowly increased. You would think it would be easier, and in some respects it's easier, right? You don't get those hot and cold calls. The bathrooms aren't clogged up. All the things that you have to do when you run a building, right? Just like your
Yeah.
own home. Things break, things don't go the way you want it to do. But what it's enabled us to do is take a step back and look at what is a post-COVID world look like for a building. And we've been, all focusing on technologies that will be beneficial to the user, the tenant, which to us is the customer, right? And not only the person who signs the lease, but people that occupy and live in that building. The culture of the building is very important. So we were focused before COVID on front-facing tech, apps that would create ease, efficiency, amenities, from yoga classes to quiet rooms to doggy daycare in some facilities, right? Like, what do you bring to make the experience of the office and the culture of the building, not necessarily inside the space, feel like your everyday life and happier, right? And Google and Facebook and Salesforce and all these companies have been pushing, and the NASDAQ have been pushing, right? This culture shift of what an office building is. All right, COVID hits, boom, right? It's crazy how one event can change the mindset of what you have to think about moving forward. And what I've learned in life is we're pivoting all day long, every day, on what we think we need to do anyway. right? And when such a crazy event happens, you can sometimes get so fearful that you don't know what to do, like deer in the headlights. But I feel Onyx really pivoted and rose to the occasion, right? So we've been focusing on touchless air filtration. MERV 11 versus MERV 13. I've learned more about filtration systems than I probably want to know, but you need to know, right? Like, our goal is making people feel comfortable, safe. We're a service company. Like, the way we serve the customer is how happy they're going to be to want to be in our building, occupy our building and stay in our building. So stuff like that has been, our focus. Delivering food to spaces. How are we going to do that? What is really the cafeteria, right? The cafeteria was a place to congregate, order food, sit down, relax, hang out. For a while, that's going to be like, how do I get in and out of there as fast as possible, right? Sort of like when you go into Sweet Greens or Panera, you can go in, pick up thing off the shelf, go back to your office or your home and get out of there. That's sort of gonna, we're gonna have to really think about and think through how we do that, and we're working on that in a big way. The bottom line is we all don't know exactly what everyone feels, and everyone has different fear levels, right? From 10 to a 1. Some people aren't fearful of this, and some are very fearful. So we have to cater to all of that.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the things that you're working on now, and here are some images of a property that you have in Paramus that you're doing this renovation in, and sort of speaking about that. So obviously everything's clear, very beautiful, but is this the type of thing that you're focusing on right now with your tenants not in the building? You're taking this opportunity to really enhance the services.
We are going as planned since this started. Now, you can't make long-term decisions on short-term happenings, right? This is a happening, right? We've gotten unbelievable vaccine news over the last weeks.
Yeah.
That does change potentially what people are going to feel and what this unfortunate virus will be in the future, right? So yes, having less people in your building has allowed us to expedite construction tremendously, right? Because when no one's there, you don't have to worry about people coming into the building. You can work longer. You can, noise is an issue, so you can do construction at hours maybe that you wouldn't have done construction. So there's no doubt in my mind, even though it's unhappy to feel that your building isn't full and occupied, right? It kills me, but it does allow you to expedite things that definitely would have taken longer. But we have not changed one thing besides what I said about how are we going to make the experience of walking into the building, getting to your space, and feeling safe. We've gone full bore with all of our projects. All of our improvement and capital projects have just been ongoing during this unfortunate event.
Yeah, no, that's great context to think about the long-term view versus an incident that's happening. But obviously, so I have to imagine, Jonathan, you've seen a different client or different tenant interested in your space in the geography that you're in. Is that the case?
No, I don't think so yet. Listen, at the very beginning, we have this hub and spoke concept that there's so many experiments going on right now, like hub and spoke. Should I be in the city? Should I not be in the city? What does this all mean? Is public transportation ever going to be a thing that people use again? Yes, it is. All the things that we are concerned about in this little short-term bubble that we're living in now, and it's ended up being much longer than we all thought, right? So I think that, a lot of people were looking and seeing what that meant. There was a flurry of activity of that. Some of it is coming to fruition. Some of it is sort of hanging out there. We have no idea what it means. But I think what we are seeing is a lot more activity. I think people are, at the beginning, you were in lockdown. Nobody was really thinking of anything except what the hell is this and how are we getting out of this, right? It was mind-boggling. So I think now, listen, in anything in life, we are malleable to the situation. We get used to the situation. So we learn how to live with the situation. And we're learning how to live with it, even though we don't like it. So we're seeing more people, I think, have that same attitude. I can't make short-term decisions. If I have a lease coming up, I got to make a decision, right?
Right,
Like, yeah,
right.
maybe I can stay where I am and literally, just sit there for a year or two. Some landlords don't want to do a deal that will allow you to have a short-term look at what's going on into the future. Some will, but you don't know that until you know. So you have to plan, right? You can't stop planning. So we're seeing companies. We have showings. We have people coming through our buildings. It's been very active, working on a bunch of very interesting, both larger deals and mid-size deals and smaller deals. So I think across the board, from mid-size small companies to large companies, we're seeing activity. You got to remember the small and mid-sized tenant makes up the bulk of any market, right? I mean, there's more mid and small companies than there are large companies, even though large companies take up lots of space. There's still, lots of tenants out there that are growing and starting and getting into their next level of where they're going to be. So we just see a lot of activity overall. Is it as much? No. I mean, obviously, it's going to take time to ramp up, but we're happy to see that there is activity.
Yeah, and sort of touching on that, whenever I've talked to my broker friends across the world, if smaller tenants can have a lease date June or July of next year, a lot of them want to see those offers right now. Are you experiencing that too?
I think that's such an interesting question. So larger companies plan way in advance. That's what you do.
Hmm.
You do that for your company and you're great at it, right? So you know what it takes to actually move because you're constantly working on moves and changes and growth and whatever you're doing for your real estate portfolio every day. Most companies, if they have 50, 100 employees or less, that's every 5 years, 10 years. So, you go into your space and you forget about it. Now, I think it's definitely come of mind that they need to plan more because they, first of all, are thinking about that more. Like, what does the office mean to me, right? All
Hmm.
these things that a company really didn't think about is now top of mind, right? Like, are we in the right building? Do we have the right amount of space? So it's creating a lot of introspection and reflection and also understanding of what will be efficient for companies moving forward with this flexible work and all these experiments that we're doing. So yes, I think real estate's definitely more of a top of mind issue where normally it's not. It's when is my expiration? Oh, do I do it? Do I start looking a year in advance, 6 months in advance? What's my option in my lease say? Do I have to let them know? I think it's much more focused on right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned the hub and smoke model, hub and spoke, not smoke, model
Yeah.
a little bit ago. Do you think, are you seeing that? Are you seeing evidence of that?
We're seeing like experimentation, like people going out and looking and saying maybe they can, put something here, maybe they don't put something here. There's not a lot of evidence right now that that's real, but I do believe it will be over time. It's just going to take, I think, longer to
Longer.
figure out, right? And again, once that vaccine news hit, 95% efficacy is a real high
Hmm.
bar for a virus, right? If you look at the flu, from what I understand, that's only like a 40 to 60. So that's why every year it changes and you don't really know. And it's coming back every year. We have a flu season, right? So, and again, I'm not anything as I'm not a scientist, a doctor. So I'm just listening to what I'm hearing on the news.
Yeah.
You would think that with that high of a rate, it's a probably a good probability that this, instead of thinking it's like something that will derail us every year, this could be that much better than we thought, right? So I
Yeah.
think if you think that, you not as worried about the long term and how many changes you're going to have to make, right? Like in the office, like we're thinking now, and hopefully that'll be for all of us. I think we all miss you know living our everyday lives, running around, not worrying about what you touch, how close you get to someone, not being able to go into a restaurant and actually feel, the joy that we do when we're with our
Yeah.
friends, our families. And I'm hoping that this really, can be a game changer.
Yeah, no, and I can't wait to catch up with you in New York City and have a cup of coffee, mate. You know what I
I
mean?
know. It's like crazy, right? You got to worry
I
about
know,
everything.
I know. So, in addition to all that, John, you actually have your own blog, and you publish here weekly, and you provide a lot of your thoughts, and a lot of your mind goes into this. And I was reading that last week, and you were talking about the change in the market, housing market, and how so many more millennials are actually buying homes. And I walk around my neighborhood on a weekend, and I see lines for open houses, and it's staggering how long they are. A lot of young people, so I can absolutely 100% relate to what you're doing. But I want to sort of think about this. If this is happening, and one has to think that these folks are migrating from cities, right? So I have to think people in my neighborhood are migrating out of New York City, and that's what they're looking at. What impact do you think that's going to have on the real estate market, corporate
I
real estate
think
market?
residential real estate has had a gigantic impact in the suburban markets from this event. I mean, I remember 9/11, I was living in the city. I had my two daughters. One was 2.5, one was 3 months old. My operations have always been in New Jersey. And, we were thinking about moving out 2 years from 9/11, like before 9/11 hit anyway, because, as your kids get older, space is very limited in the city. It's hard to afford what you really would like to have. So we were thinking anyway. And when 9/11 hit, that week we literally started looking, and it expedited our decision.
Mm-hmm.
So there's two things going on though with the COVID thing. One is it's going to expedite people's decisions because they've already experienced leaving the city with their kids, because millennials are older. We've been talking about them for years. They're much older now, right? So they're in having the kids and the family. It was just really a little bit delayed, right? So they're now saying, wow, like, we're going to do this anyway. Why not do it now? And you're seeing that. The other thing is, with this work from home, you finally figured out, oh my God, I really don't have enough space if I'm going to actually have a work from home environment, right? So most people that were younger got small places to be in cities, to be around people. And then all of a sudden, when they had to stay in that 6 or 7 or 800 square foot apartment all day and work there and not leave, they're like, this is not for me, right? I don't want to ever have to have this feeling again. So I think this has morphed what people were probably going to do anyway at a certain age, but also rethink, oh my God, if this happens again, do I really want to be in this predicament again with roommates? And how do you, it's very hard to work if you have 3 roommates in a 1,000 square foot apartment, right? So that doesn't work. So I think that's what's going on, and it's obviously boding well for the residential market in suburbia.
Yeah. So then, what impact do you think that's going to have on the corporate real estate market in the cities that they've vacated?
Listen, the good thing about residential real estate, unless you buy something, rental, there's a lot of beautiful luxury rental apartments that were being built. We're doing a beautiful project in Ridgewood, actually 2 projects in Ridgewood right now. And we're also involved in one in Woodbridge that are going to be, new state-of-the-art, fully technologized. That's not a word, but that's what I'm saying.
I know what you mean.
All the new amenities, right? Like, so with more space. So, but that's only year rentals, right? That's not a life decision. That's not like buying a home and saying, I'm going to be here for the next 5 years. So the residential real estate market's fluid, which means each year you decide, if you're renting an apartment, whether it's in the city or it's in the suburbs, what am I going to do next, right? So I think that's what's going on. I think people are making short-term decisions that help their lives, hopefully to understand what the long-term will be once we get through this year and next year. And I think the jury's out of really what that will be, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, I think, just like 9/11, it took 2 or 3 years. And then, look what happened. I think I've said this on one of your other shows. Nobody was going above the 10th floor for 18 months, right? I mean, nobody was ever going to get on a plane again for a long time. It was trauma. We're living through a trauma. So, it doesn't just change overnight. And the problem is this is an extended trauma, right? 9/11 was one day, boom, and then we had to live through the unfortunate aftermath, and it was horrible. I remember where I was sitting to this day, and I'll never forget that day. this is like, I'm going to have to say, I'll never forget that 365 days, right? I mean, this is like extended to the max. So I think it's going to take a little longer. And I think certain people's habits, because anything that you practice, right? If you're a good athlete, I've been trying to get better at golf during this thing. I've been able to play more, right? It's the only thing you can do to actually be around people and be safe in my mind. So I've gotten better. Why? Because I practice. So we've been practicing certain things in our lives now, right? That we don't know if we want to change it. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamic of unwinding a period of a lot of practice doing something a different way to go back to what the other way was. But I feel animal spirits and humanness and being together and collaboration and culture, which has been what everyone's been striving for in the workplace, in your personal lives. Once we're allowed, I just think this is going to be the biggest, greatest coming out party of being around people in history, right? And I hope someone throws one, actually.
Yeah, and I just wonder for those employers who think people are not productive today, what they're going to think in 2022 when everyone's out having that party, But
listen, you know what? That would be great to have, right? That would be a good problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, thinking about corporate real estate and thinking about prop tech, there's been a lot of resistance, it appears, right? We look at other industries and how technology and software has really developed, at such rapid paces. Do you think there's any reasons why corporate real estate has been sort of delayed in getting on that train?
Listen, change is hard, man. So, and especially in a company, because a company's different than your personal life. If I want to pick up a new gadget or a piece of technology for myself, that's John Schultz wanting to change me. If someone comes and tells me in the C-suite or somewhere else in an organization that you have to change what you're doing right now, and I'm used to it, that's friction at the max. So any change is resistance, and it's how much resistance amongst a bunch of people do you have to get through for that change to actually be a relevant change for your company. So when you're changing yourself, it's you. When you have to change people and it's not on their volition or them wanting to change, that's a much longer process. Now, our industry just was always behind the curve on adoption of anything, but that's not the truth anymore. I mean,
that's true.
Over the last 7 years, I'm proud of our industry in that we have really taken to what the future needs to be for us to be relevant. We are a large market. We're $15-16 trillion market as far as what real estate is as an industry. We have to change, right? Or someone's going to come in and change around us, and we're going to be, sitting on the sidelines. So I see a lot of change, point solutions and other solutions that have been effective, have scaled in our industry, have scaled in asset classes. I think the biggest change that I think is going to be beneficial for our industry moving forward is the cloud. This unfortunate virus has pushed everyone to have to be in the cloud, both small and medium-sized businesses. So now 5G and all the mobility. And it really, if we didn't have this painful transition to the cloud over the last 10 years, 7 years, we would not be able to do this work from home thing. I mean, we would be completely shut down. So thank God everyone in their own way got as ready as possible. But this now pushed everybody to have to be ready. And now with 5G coming, into our lives, if you're in the cloud and you have all your data up there from AI, machine learning, like all the things we've been spouting about and talking about, you actually may have a chance, even as a mid and small size company, to be in that next wave of technology, for the future. So I think this may have actually helped us in certain ways. And there's silver linings always in what you don't realize is happening that forces you to do things. So I think that will be an interesting thing to watch. I do also believe it's forcing us now, like I said at the beginning, to figure out how to deliver services a little bit differently. Will that stick around? I don't know. But I think you got to also know if this happened once, it can happen again,
Hmm.
and you don't want to be behind the curve the second time. So I think it's very important to have a lot of this stick around so that you are ready for, God forbid, and I hope never,
Hmm.
something else happens, right? Like
Yeah.
that would be like the stupidest thing to do is think, something like this can never happen again, right? Because it happened once, right? So I
Right.
think that's important to, keep top of mind moving forward as well.
And I also think what this has done, this incident, has sort of focused minds on elevating the experiences you mentioned and ways that actually help people come back into the environments, right? So you mentioned at the start, right from the offset, right? You're focused on touchless. You're focused on ways to allow your tenants to feel safe, feel secure when they enter each of your buildings. And without this, I have to imagine as a property owner, you would have got there, but to your point, it may have been a number of years down the road.
Listen, safety, health, wellness is now the single most important amenity in any place that you go, from hotels to restaurants. You want to now, and you're going to think about, like, are they doing the right thing to care about me? When
Hmm.
I'm walking in, are they caring about me and my health and my, so yes, you have to, this has to be front and center in your face, but real focus and real, process, and how are you showing it. So I think it's going to be, it's paramount to me.
Yeah.
uh, will everyone have a different take on what that feels and looks like? Of course. Will people make mistakes because it's all new? Of course. But you got to be out there and put yourself out there to try and be the best at it that you possibly can, and learn the most about all the new technologies and processes and improvements that are out there. And you can't be afraid to try. You just got to keep trying and trying. It's like any startup, any entrepreneur, most of their products are never what they thought when they started. They're completely different by the time the customer, right, accepts and adopts what they thought they were doing. So that's what we have to do with buildings. That's what we have to do with spaces. I mean, I can't even imagine what you're going through trying to figure out. Listen, we're just like, come through the front door, go through the lobby, get in the elevator or take the stairs, and then get to your space. Once you're in the space, you take over. So I can't even imagine what you're going through, thinking about what you have to think through.
It's quite involved, like you just described, right? And yeah, it's the other side of it is each building is different, each occupant is different, each user is different, each
Yep.
operation, function, responsibility that actually happens in every building around the world is very different. So therefore, the solution has to be solution will be different too. So, no,
Yep.
very interesting thoughts, Jonathan. Before we wrap up here, any last thoughts from your good self?
Uh, Listen, I'm just hoping and praying that, the hardest industries that got hit were like the restaurants, the movie theater chains, the local businesses that, all these unbelievable entrepreneurs that, have taken a risk and opened a store, started a small business. And I'm just hoping that we just get through this, and, you know, uh, everyone survives and thrives afterwards. Right.
Yeah.
Some businesses are doing well during this, but some aren't. So I'm hoping that, the majority can get through this, and we can all, get past this hopefully next year, and survive, together, but then thrive together too. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm hoping for.
So, and on that, do you look at your business? Do you think at the moment you're surviving, or do you think you're thriving?
Listen, I think, no matter what, when a trauma hits, you think you're in survival mode. You can't help it. That's how we're wired, right? That's evolution. I mean, if you just go back hundreds of
Hmm.
years, when anything that you think can hurt you, you go into survive mode and fight or flight, right? I mean, that's just how we're wired. I think that we're like thriving because I think we're communicating. We care about Onyx. We care about everybody that works in Onyx. We're making sure everybody, we're listening. Everyone wants to hear how you doing today. This is a new experience we've all gone through, so, and we're all human. So I think we're thriving because we all care about each other and we all care about how we're going to get through this, and we're communicating and we're working hard and we're all trying to figure it out, right? We're serving our tenants, which are our customers. So we're looking at something that's bigger than us, right? Like, it's not just about us, it's about everyone that we come in contact with. And, we want to make sure businesses can keep going, and we want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, right? So I think overall, that to me, that's thriving. But on the other hand, we're still feeling like everybody else feels.
Right. No, it's great. Jonathan, as always, it's a pleasure to chat with you. It's a pleasure to spend time with you. Thank you, man. I really appreciate your time today.
I love your show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So, look, folks, please do. There's links below to reach and connect up with Jonathan. Please feel free to do so. If you do like the channel, you find this valuable, please consider subscribing, and do check out opensourceworkplace.com for additional content that we produce. Jonathan, mate, thank you. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
I learn new things on open source every day. So
thank you, man.
It's a valuable tool. It's a great tool.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. And I didn't pay you to say it, so thank you, man.